In BattleBit, the sheer scale of the game can make going on good, lengthy kill streaks feel like an uphill battle to achieve. It at times feels like there's just so much luck behind everything working, and getting you to where you need to be to get that sick killing spree. And to a certain degree, yes, there will always be an element of luck involved, but there's also a lot that you can do as a player to get yourself on those higher kill streaks. G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today we're going to share some tips and tricks for winning more gunfights and becoming a better player in BattleBit Remastered. Alright folks, so before we get too far here, I want to set a few expectations here. First and foremost, no, this will not be the quick life hack style of tutorial that is going to suddenly punch you up from a 0.5 KD to a 2.5 KD. Nor will it be the kind of tutorial that teaches you perfect recoil control if your skills in this area are already a little, imperfect, let's just say. While the tips that we do have to share today will go a long way in closing some of those gaps, getting better at first-person shooter games is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a matter of putting in the time, understanding where you went wrong in very specific ways, and putting those small pieces of the puzzle together that will eventually, in aggregate, turn you into an absolute beast. And it's those small pieces that I wanted to give you all some guidance on today. You know, those small thought processes that inform a lot of my gameplay. So with that in mind, let's start diving into some of those tips and tricks that will help you go the distance in your travels in BattleBit. Starting off, I want to touch on something that may sound very obvious, but at the same time is something that is very easy to forget. That is being aware of your surroundings, and on top of that, limiting the number of angles that you are exposed to at a time, and ergo, the number of enemies you're exposed to at a time. As fun as it is to score 2, 3, sometimes 4 kill feeds on a group of players you jumped in a 1v4, the odds are always stacked against you in those situations, and as a stepping stone, you should be endeavoring to limit the amount of targets you are visible to at once. Now, this is obviously something that is going to come to you in part with map knowledge over time, and I'm also not saying that you should check every window or angle before you move somewhere or before you take a fight in this game. If you were to do that on some maps in this game, you never make it more than 2 meters. But in saying that, you do always want to make a conscious effort to limit how exposed you are when in a firefight to ensure that you don't cop a double team from another angle. Now, to draw up an example of this thinking in action, let's just say you're sitting up on the rooftop of a building and you're trying to engage an enemy that's not directly underneath you, but below you and on ground level. Now, sure, you can walk right up to the edge of that rooftop and get some good visibility on the target to score a kill, but in doing that, you're also giving more enemies a much better silhouette of you to shoot, and your larger profile is going to be far easier to kill in those situations. But by comparison, let's just say you make a conscious effort to only just peek over the lip of the roof enough to get that kill, you still, at the end of the day, score the kill, but it is far less risky, and you are less likely to cop a hit from an angle that you weren't expecting to do so. To flip the situation a little bit here, think back to all of those times that you've been engaged from an elevated position by an enemy. I'm almost willing to guarantee that the more annoying targets in those situations for you guys were the ones that were head glitching, quote unquote, weren't they? The ones that were just peeking just enough to get their rounds on you. The ones that had their full body peeking over the lip of the rooftop, I'm sure they were far easier to counter as a result of that. And that's that thought process at play there, and what it feels like to be on the opposing end of as the victim. It's always best practice to minimize the threat to you personally, while also trying to maximize your return as you engage targets. The exact same mentality can be applied to when you're peeking corners in a building, for example. A really solid strategy here is to, and I hope I'm getting this terminology right, is to slice the pie as you come around a corner where you think enemies may be. This involves you taking the widest possible angle around a corner to give you better visibility on targets one at a time. Doing this a bit slower as well also means that you're more likely to isolate a target from his mates that may be around him around that corner and work your way methodically through a group of targets instead of, engaging them all at once. Again, it's a pretty simple sounding consideration, but with the amount of people who I see take fights or approach a fight in a way that leaves them with their pants around their ankles, I felt it was worth mentioning. Now, despite how much you work on that particular skill of isolating targets and minimizing your exposure, there are always going to be times where you catch yourself looking at 2, 3, sometimes 4 enemies at once. And you see those players in those montages doing exactly that all the time, facing groups of enemies at the same time, and more often than not, coming out on top. Want to know one of the key things that gets those players ahead in those situations? 2 words: target prioritization. Basically, the skill of looking at a group of targets, performing a quick, lightning-fast assessment of who is most likely to be the threat at that moment in time, and prioritizing those targets accordingly. And more often than not, folks, despite this being the easiest route to take when doing these quote-unquote threat assessments, the target that's of highest threat to you will not always be the one that you see first. It may not even be the one that's easiest to kill as far as your aim is concerned. And that is where the skill lies. The reason that these highly skilled players can go on these incredible back rages that sees them nailing 3 to 4 dudes in quick succession without a single one of them seeming to bat an eye is because they're always targeting the player that is of most immediate threat. The player that is in the best possible position to counter-engage them. And the moment that most immediate threat goes down, you actually gift yourself just that little bit of extra time to move on to your next target as they are forced to react. And then you can make the next threat assessment, and then the next one, and the next, on repeat until all targets are dead. And in making these assessments, these are the questions that you should be asking yourself. For one, which enemy player is looking in my general direction right now? Is there one actually aiming at me or looking directly at me as we speak? Of that, which one of those players has a weapon drawn on me right now? There's no point in targeting the combat medic with his medical kit out when his mate right next to him has a weapon drawn and is ready to engage. And on top of that, which weapon do they have? Are they rocking a pistol or an SMG? Chances are the guy with a sniper rifle in close quarters combat is going to be less of a threat than the guy with an automatic weapon who's also aiming at you. Again, it's a skill that may take some time to get used to, but doing so will afford you so much in the way of combat effectiveness in how you can chain kills together and come out with some excellent crowd control strategies. But obviously, there are always going to be times where things get a little too heated. And in BattleBit, it can be real easy to get caught up in the heat of a moment and just keep holding left click until you win. Because, you know, we all know it's that simple, right? But now, in all seriousness, there are some situations where no amount of target prioritization, good aim, good movement, all of that fun stuff will get you out of. And in those situations, one of the skills that will, unironically actually, lead you to more kills over time is knowing when to back off and let the heat die off. Breaking line of sight, finding some cover to reload, heal, do what you have to do, it will give you an opportunity to restart a fight in a situation that is back in your favor. And further to that, just because an enemy starts shooting at you doesn't necessarily mean that you need to start shooting back immediately. There's no shame in backing away from a fight only to try and restart it on a footing that works best for you, whether it be through some repositioning or trying to juke an enemy into pushing you. This sort of mental game will even work in 1v1 situations. And forcing a fight that is put you on the back foot from day dot will never be a good start. So yeah, don't be afraid to restart a fight as needed when the opportunity allows it. Now, the last tip that I really want to harp on in this video is arguably the one that is going to sound the absolute silliest here. But I point it out because the amount of people I see committing this simple sin in the FPS gaming world is insane. And that sin is aiming at the floor. At all times, folks, your crosshair should be in a position where you are most expecting enemies to come from. Unless you are planning on engaging ants the whole game, that is not the fucking floor. By placing your crosshair passively at chest to head height in this game, you are almost immediately cutting down your reaction time and are less likely to overcorrect your aim in trying to reach the target when you are eventually jumped. Again, it sounds simple stupid, but again, it's one of those simple things that in aggregate builds up to you becoming a far more efficient player in the game. So that is everything I had for this video, guys, but if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like on it and let me know if you want to see more content like this in the future. Did you want to see me dive into some more tips and tricks that I've learned through my time of playing first-person shooter games? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave any of your tips and tricks that you feel I may have missed in the comment section down below. It all goes a long way to helping to build up this community resource. And if you guys are new to the channel and enjoyed your time here, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all future videos that are on the way to the channel. I promise you guys we've got some really exciting content and plans on the way, so you might as well be here anyway. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.